He was about to say "I do" when the church doors slammed open. 3 children, her arms, his eyes. Everything he thought he'd buried 3 years ago was standing right there alive, breathing, staring at him. She wasn't supposed to be there. He made sure of it, but she came anyway, and the secret she carried, it was about to burn his entire empire to the ground. What happens when the most powerful man in the city realizes he threw away the only thing that ever mattered? This is not a love story. This is a reckoning. The October air in New York City tasted like rain and regret. J1 stood at the altar in a tailored black tuxedo. That cost more than most people's yearly salary. The kind of suit that screamed control, power, untouchable. But inside, he felt nothing. St. Patrick's Cathedral was packed. Politicians, business moguls, underground associates dressed in expensive silence. They all came to witness the union everyone had been waiting for. The merger of two empires through marriage. Seo Yin sat in the front row, radiant in ivory silk. Beautiful, polished, perfect. A stranger, Jae-won's jaw tightened as the priest droned on about sacred vows and eternal commitment, words that meant nothing to him. This wasn't about love. It never had been. This was strategy. His father made that clear 3 years ago when he ripped apart the only relationship J1 had ever cared about. She's not one of us, J1. She doesn't understand our world. She will make you weak. And so, he let her go. No, he threw her out. He watched his security drag her from the estate while she begged him to listen. He stood there, stone-faced, and told her she was no longer welcome in his life. He never asked why she looked so terrified. He never asked why she kept reaching for him even as they pulled her away. He just let it happen. 3 years later, the memory still burned in his chest like a scar that never healed. The cathedral doors groaned, a sound so sudden, so sharp, that every head in the room turned. Jae-won's breath caught. The massive wooden doors swung open with a force that echoed through the vaulted ceiling. Sunlight poured in like a spotlight, cutting through the dim interior. And there she was, Naomi. She stood in the doorway, her silhouette framed by golden light. Her hair was longer now, pulled back in a simple bun. She wore a dark coat over jeans and boots, nothing expensive, nothing designed to impress. But it was her eyes that hit him like a bullet. Those same dark, burning eyes that used to look at him like he was more than the empire. Like he was just J-1. Before he could process what he was seeing, she shifted, and that's when he saw them. 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, all clinging to her sides. Small hands gripping her coat, wide eyes staring at the sea of strangers. They couldn't have been more than 3 years old. Jae-won's heart stopped. No, it wasn't possible. The priest's voice faltered. Whispers rippled through the crowd like wildfire. Seo Yin turned in her seat, her perfect composure cracking just slightly. But Jae-won couldn't move. He was frozen, staring at the woman he'd spent 3 years trying to forget and the 3 children who looked exactly like him. Dark hair, sharp features, eyes that held both fire and fear. His chest tightened. One of the boys, the taller one, looked directly at him. No fear, no hesitation, just recognition. As if he'd been waiting his entire short life for this moment. Naomi didn't say a word. She just stood there, holding her ground, her chin lifted in defiance. Behind her, 2 bodyguards appeared at the entrance, confusion flickering across their faces. They moved toward her, but she raised a hand. "I'm not here to cause trouble," she said, her voice steady but loud enough to carry through the stunned silence. "I'm here because he has a right to know." Jae-won's father rose from his seat in the front row, his face a mask of controlled fury. "Remove her now." But Jae-won's voice cut through the chaos before anyone could move. "Stop." The single word carried the weight of a command that no one dared to disobey. His father turned slowly, eyes narrowing. "Jae-won, this is..." "I said stop." The cathedral fell into suffocating silence. Jae-won stepped down from the altar, his movements deliberate, measured. Seo Yin reached for his arm, but he gently pulled away. He walked down the aisle, every step echoing like thunder. The crowd parted, and finally, after 3 years of emptiness, he stood face to face with the woman who once held his entire world in her hands. up close. He could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the way her hands trembled slightly as she held the little girl closer. The faint scar on her jaw that hadn't been there before. "Naomi," he breathed, his voice barely a whisper. She didn't flinch, didn't cry, didn't beg. She just looked at him with a strength that shattered him. "They're yours, J1," she said quietly. "They've always been yours." The little girl reached up, her tiny hand brushing against Naomi's cheek. "Mama." J1's knees nearly buckled. 3 years she'd been raising his children alone. 3 years he'd lived in a lie. And now, standing in the middle of his wedding to another woman, surrounded by everyone who expected him to be unbreakable, he realized he'd never been more powerless in his life. Behind him, his father's voice was ice. "J1, you will finish the ceremony now." But J1 didn't turn around. He couldn't, because for the first time in 3 years, he was looking at the only future that had ever mattered. The silence in the cathedral was suffocating. No one moved, no one breathed. J1 stood frozen, his entire world collapsing in slow motion. The little girl, his daughter, stared up at him with eyes that mirrored his own, curious, unafraid. She tilted her head, studying him the way children do when they don't yet understand how broken the world can be. "Who's that, Mama?" she whispered. Naomi's jaw tightened. She didn't answer. J1's throat burned. He wanted to speak, to say something, anything, but the words wouldn't come. Behind him, Seo-yin's heels clicked against the marble floor. She appeared at his side, her expression a careful mask of composure, but he could see the fracture in her eyes. "J1," she said softly, her voice tight. "What is this?" He didn't answer her either. His father stepped forward, his presence like a storm rolling in. Tall, immaculate in his charcoal suit. The kind of man who controlled entire cities with a single phone call. "This," his father said coldly, his gaze fixed on Naomi. As a desperate woman making the scene, Naomi's grip on the children tightened. But she didn't back down. "I'm not here to beg. I'm here because they deserve to know their father." "Their father?" His father laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "You were told to leave. You were paid to leave." J1's head snapped toward his father. "What?" His father's expression didn't change. "She was compensated, generously. She signed the agreement and walked away." "That's a lie," Naomi said, her voice shaking now, not with fear, but with rage. "I never signed anything. I was dragged out of your house while I was pregnant and told that if I ever came back, I'd regret it." J1's pulse hammered in his ears. He turned to his father, his voice dangerously low. "You knew. I protected you," his father said simply. "From a distraction, from weakness. Their children, their leverage," his father corrected. "And she knows it. That's why she's here now on your wedding day, to manipulate you." Naomi's laugh was hollow. "Manipulate him? I've been raising 3 kids on my own for 3 years. I worked jobs. I haven't slept through a single night since they were born. I didn't come here for money. I came here because they asked about their father, and I couldn't lie to them anymore." One of the boys, the quieter one, pressed closer to her leg, his small face half hidden in her coat. J1 felt something crack inside him. He knelt down slowly, ignoring the gasps from the crowd, ignoring Seo-yin's sharp intake of breath. He was eye level with the children now. The taller boy stared at him with a defiance that was painfully familiar. The quieter one peeked out from behind Naomi, and the little girl just blinked at him, her tiny hand still clutching her mother's coat. "What are their names?" J1 asked, his voice rough. Naomi hesitated, then, softly, "Kai, Elijah, and Mia." Kai, Elijah, Mia, his children. J1's chest tightened so violently, he thought he might break. "Kai," the bold one, stepped forward. "Are you him?" J1 swallowed hard. I don't know what your mother told you. She said our dad was important," Kai said, his voice small but steady. "That he had to do important things, but that he didn't know about us." J1's gaze snapped to Naomi. She was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. "I never wanted them to hate you," she whispered, "even after everything." J1 stood slowly, his legs unsteady. He turned to his father. You knew she was pregnant, and you threw her out anyway." His father's expression was carved from stone. She was a weakness. You are the heir to this family. You don't get to choose love over legacy. I didn't choose anything, Jae-won said, his voice breaking. You made the choice for me, and I do it again. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Seo-yin touched Jae-won's arm gently. Jae-won, we can talk about this later. Let's just… No. She flinched. Jae-won pulled away from her, his eyes still locked on Naomi and the children. I need to know the truth, he said quietly. All of it. Naomi wiped her face with the back of her hand. The truth? The truth is that I loved you. And when I found out I was pregnant, I was terrified, but I was also happy. Because I thought maybe we could build something real. Her voice cracked. But your family didn't see it that way. They saw me as a threat. So they got rid of me. And when I tried to reach you, when I sent letters, when I called nothing, you were already gone. Jae-won's heart shattered. I never got any letters. I know, she said bitterly. I figured that out eventually. His father stepped between them. Enough. This spectacle ends. Now, Naomi, you will leave quietly, or I will have you removed. And this time, you won't be coming back. Jae-won moved so fast his father barely had time to react. He grabbed his father's wrist, his grip like iron. Touch her again, and you'll regret it. The entire room went still. His father's eyes narrowed. You're making a mistake. No, Jae-won said, his voice steady now. I already made the mistake. 3 years ago, when I let you take her from me. He released his father's wrist and turned back to Naomi. I'm sorry, he said, his voice breaking. I'm so sorry. Naomi shook her head. Sorry doesn't change the past. Jae-won, I know. He looked at the children at Genkai, Elijah. Mia and felt the weight of 3 years crash down on him. But maybe, he said quietly, it can change the future. Seo-yin's voice was ice. Jae-won, are you seriously doing this? Here, now. He turned to her, and for the first time, he saw her clearly. Beautiful, poised, perfect, and completely wrong. I'm sorry, Seo-yin, he said gently, but I can't marry you. The cathedral erupted in chaos. Voices overlapped shock, outrage, disbelief. His father shouted something, but Jae-won couldn't hear it anymore. All he could hear was Mia's small voice. Mama, is he really our dad? Naomi knelt down, pulling all 3 children close. Yes, baby, he is. Kai looked up at Jae-won. His young face serious? Does that mean you're gonna stay? Jae-won's throat closed. He knelt down again, this time closer. I don't know what happened next. He admitted, but I promise you I'm not walking away again. And for the first time in 3 years, Jae-won felt something other than emptiness. He felt purpose. The aftermath was chaos. Guests flooded out of the cathedral, and a wave of whispers and hurried phone calls. Seo-yin left without a word, her family close behind her father's glare sharp enough to cut glass. Jae-won's father stood at the altar, surrounded by his inner circle, his fury a palpable force. But Jae-won didn't care. For the first time in his life, he didn't care about the empire, the alliances, the carefully constructed world his family had built. He cared about the woman standing in the doorway, holding 3 children who looked like him. Come with me, he said quietly. Naomi shook her head. I'm not going anywhere with you. Naomi, you don't get to do this, she said, her voice trembling. You don't get to just decide you're sorry and expect everything to be okay. Kai tugged on her coat. Mama, I'm tired. She closed her eyes, exhaling slowly. I know, baby. Jae-won stepped closer. Let me help. Please, help. Naomi laughed bitterly. You want to help now? Where were you when I was sleeping in my car because I couldn't afford rent? Where were you when Mia was sick and I had to choose between medicine and food? Each word was a knife I didn't know. Jae-won said, his voice breaking. If I had known, you should have known. She shouted, and the rawness in her voice silenced him. You should have fought for me. But you didn't. You just let them take me. Tears streamed down her face now, and she didn't bother wiping them away. I waited. Jae-won, I waited for months, thinking maybe you'd come looking for me. Maybe you'd realize what they did. But you never came. I thought you left, he whispered. They told me you didn't want this life, that you chose to go. Naomi's expression crumpled. And you believe them? He had. God help him. He had. J1 sank onto the cathedral steps, his head in his hands. I was a coward. Yes, Naomi said simply. You were. Silence stretched between them, heavy and suffocating. Mia broke free from Naomi's grip and toddled over to J1. She stood in front of him, her tiny hand reaching out to touch his face. Why are you sad? She asked. J1 looked up at her, and something inside him shattered completely. Because I miss so much, he said, his voice thick. I missed you, all of you. Mia tilted her head. You can't miss us now. We're right here. The simplicity of it broke him. He pulled her into his arms carefully, as if she might disappear if he held it tight. She didn't pull away. She just rested her small head against his shoulder. Kai and Elijah watched from Naomi's side, uncertainty written across their faces. Naomi's resolve wavered. This doesn't fix anything, she said quietly. I know, J1 replied, but I want to try. Try what? To be a father. You can't just walk into their lives whenever it's convenient and walk out when it gets hard. I won't. You don't know that. I do. He looked at her over Mia's head, his eyes fierce. Because I know what it feels like to live without you.
If you're still here, it's not by accident. Something about this story made you stay. But what you're hearing right now, it's only a preview. The complete experience includes 30 full-length stories, uninterrupted. No ads, no cuts, no pauses breaking the emotion. Just press play and let it continue. The QR code is on your screen, or tap the link in the pinned comment.
And I'm not doing it again. Naomi's breath hitched. Before she could respond, a black SUV pulled up to the curb. J1's head of security stepped out, his expression grim. Sir, your father wants to speak with you now. J1 didn't move. Tell him I'm busy. Sir, I said no. The security guard hesitated, then nodded and retreated. Naomi stared at him. You just openly defied him, in front of everyone. He's had control long enough, you think. It's that simple? You think you can just walk away from all of this? She gestured at the cathedral, the waiting cars, the remnants of the life he was supposed to live. I don't know, J1 admitted, but I know I can't keep pretending I don't have a choice. Kai finally spoke up. Are you really gonna stay with us? J1 set Mia down gently and knelt in front of all three of them. I can't promise I'll be perfect, he said. I don't know how to be a dad, but I want to learn. If you'll let me. Elijah, the quiet one, stepped forward. He didn't say anything, just reached out and took J1's hand. It was the smallest gesture, but it was everything. Naomi covered her mouth, fresh tears spilling over. J1 stood slowly, still holding Elijah's hand. He looked at Naomi, and for the first time, he let her see the full weight of his regret. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, he said, but I'm asking anyway. Not for me, for them. Naomi closed her eyes. When she opened them again, there was something different in her gaze. Not trust, not yet, but possibility. One step at a time, she said finally. J1 nodded. One step at a time. Behind them, the cathedral doors closed with a heavy finality, and in that moment, J1 knew there was no going back, only forward, into the unknown, into the life he should have fought for 3 years ago. Artifact to CAP Toulouse 046 Chapter 0 for WAR, and Heart the penthouse overlooked the city, like a throne above the clouds. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed Manhattan's glittering skyline, but J1 barely noticed. He stood in the center of the living room, watching Naomi help the children out of their coats. It had been 2 hours since the cathedral, 2 hours since his world imploded. His phone buzzed relentlessly, and his pocket calls from his father, from family associates, from Seoyin's relatives demanding answers. He ignored them all. Mia yawned, rubbing her eyes with tiny fists. Kai explored the space with wide-eyed wonder, touching the leather furniture like it might disappear. Elijah stayed close to Naomi, his hand gripping hers. They're exhausted, Naomi said quietly. We should go. Stay, J1 said. Please, just for tonight. She shook her head. I don't think that's a good idea. Naomi, you have guest rooms, don't you? She interrupted, her tone sharp. We'll stay. but only because they're too tired to take the subway back to Brooklyn. He nodded, relief flooding through him. Of course. I'll show you. The guest wing was pristine and touched. Like most of the penthouse, J1 rarely spent time here. It was a place to sleep, nothing more. But now, watching Naomi tuck the children into the oversized bed, it felt different. It felt like it could be a home. Mia fought sleep, her eyelids drooping even as she clutched a stuffed rabbit Naomi pulled from her bag. Mama, is this where we're gonna live now? Naomi's expression tightened. No, baby, this is just for tonight. But why? Kai asked. Sitting up, he's got a lot of space, and it's really nice, because, Naomi said gently, brushing his hair back. Things are complicated. Adults always say that, Kai muttered. J1 leaned against the door frame, his chest aching. Once the children were asleep, Naomi stepped out into the hallway. Closing the door softly behind her, she walked past J1 without a word. Heading toward the living room, he followed. She stood by the windows, arms crossed, staring out at the city. You can't just give them everything and expect it to fix this. I'm not trying to fix anything with money, J1 said. Then what are you trying to do? I don't know. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration bleeding into his voice. I'm figuring it out as I go. I need you to give me a chance. Naomi laughed bitterly. A chance? J1. You had 3 years. 3 years to wonder where I was. 3 years to question what your family told you. I was wrong, he said, stepping closer. I was a coward, and I was wrong. But I can't change the past. All I can do is show up now. She turned to face him, her eyes blazing. Show up. You think showing up is enough? Do you have any idea what it was like being pregnant and alone in a city that chewed me up and spit me out? Working 2 jobs while carrying triplets because I had no one. Her voice cracked. I went into labor at a bus stop. J1. A bus stop. A stranger called 911. I gave birth in a hospital where I didn't know a single person. And when they asked for the father's information, I had to write a known because you were gone. J1 felt like he'd been punched in the chest. I didn't know, he whispered. You should have known, she shouted, tears streaming down her face now. You should have fought for me. But you didn't. You let them win. You're right. The admission hung in the air. Naomi wiped her face angrily. Don't do that. Don't just agree with me to make me feel better. I'm not. He stepped closer, his voice raw. You're right. I should have fought. I should have questioned everything. I should have burned the whole damn empire down to find you. He paused, his jaw tight. But I didn't, because I was weak. Because I believed the lie that power was more important than love. And I've spent 3 years living in a prison I built myself. Naomi stared at him, her chest heaving. I can't undo what I did. J1 continued. But I can be here now. I can fight now. And I will. For you. For them. For the life we should have had. Words. J1. She said bitterly. That's all you've ever been good at. Beautiful words that don't mean anything when your family comes calling. As if on cue. The elevator chimed. J1's head snapped toward the sound, his entire body tensing. The doors slid open, and his father stepped out, flanked by the security guards. Naomi's breath caught. J1 moved instantly, placing himself between her and his father. You're not welcome here. His father's expression was cold, controlled. This is still family property. J1, I go where I please. Not anymore. His father's gaze shifted to Naomi, and something dark flickered in his eyes. So this is how you choose to humiliate me, by bringing her into our home. She was always supposed to be here. J1 said, his voice like steel. You're the one who decided otherwise. I made a decision. To protect this family, his father said. To protect you. You destroyed me. J1 shot back. You took the only thing that ever mattered and threw it away like garbage. His father's jaw tightened. You think love makes you strong? It makes you vulnerable, weak, controllable. Then I'd rather be weak, the words echoed through the penthouse. His father stepped closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. You walk away from this family, and you lose everything. The business, the name, the protection. You'll be nothing. J1 didn't flinch. I've been nothing for 3 years. At least now I'll be nothing with a purpose. His father's eyes narrowed. You're choosing her over your legacy. I'm choosing my children, J1 said. And yes, I'm choosing her. For a long moment, his father said nothing. Then, slowly, he turned to Naomi. You think you've won, he said quietly, but you haven't. This world, my world, it will chew you up. You don't belong here. You never did. Naomi lifted her chin, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. I don't want to belong here. I just want my children to know their father. Their father, his father repeated, almost mocking. J1 doesn't know how to be a father. He only knows how to be what I made him. Then maybe it's time he became something else, Naomi said. J1's father laughed a cold, humorless sound. We'll see how long this lasts. He turned toward the elevator, pausing just before stepping inside. You have until morning to come to your senses, he said without looking back. After that, you're on your own. The elevator doors closed. Silence filled the penthouse. Naomi exhaled shakily, her hands trembling. This was a mistake. I shouldn't have come. No. J1 said firmly. You were right to come. You were right to show me the truth. The truth. She laughed bitterly. The truth is that your father will never accept us. And if you choose us, you'll lose everything. I don't care. You should, Naomi said, because the world he controls, it's dangerous. And I won't put my children in danger. Our children, J1 corrected gently. Naomi's breath hitched. He stepped closer, his voice softening. I know you don't trust me. I know I haven't earned it. But I'm asking you to give me time. Let me prove that I'm not the man who let you go. Let me prove I can be the father they deserve. Naomi closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. What if you fail? Then I fail, J1 said. But I'd rather fail trying than spend the rest of my life wondering what could have been. She looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time, she saw something she hadn't seen in 3 years. Conviction, not the cold, calculated control he wore like armor, but raw, desperate, real conviction. 1 week, she said finally. You have 1 week to prove you're serious. That you're not going to disappear the moment things get hard. Relief crashed over him. 1 week. I'll take it. Naomi wiped her face, her voice barely a whisper. Don't make me regret this. J1, I won't, he promised. But as he watched her walk back toward the guest room, he knew the real fight was just beginning. Because his father didn't make empty threats, and the war for his family had only just started. The first morning was chaos. J1 woke to the sound of crying, high-pitched, relentless, and coming from the guest wing. He bolted out of bed, his heart racing, and found Naomi in the kitchen, trying to calm Mia, while simultaneously making breakfast for Kai and Elijah. She doesn't like oatmeal, Kai explained matter-of-factly, spooning cereal into his mouth. She only eats pancakes on Wednesdays. J1 blinked. It's Wednesday to her. Naomi shot him a look that said welcome to parenthood and continued trying to soothe Mia, who was red-faced and hiccuping between sobs. J1 stepped forward hesitantly. Can I try? Naomi looked exhausted. She handed Mia over without a word. The little girl immediately stopped crying and stared at him with wide, curious eyes. Hi, J1 said awkwardly. Mia touched his face. You're tall. Yes, I am, she giggled. Kai looked up from his cereal. She likes you. J1 felt something warm bloom in his chest. He looked at Naomi, who was watching him with an unreadable expression. Pancakes, he offered. She raised an eyebrow. You know how to make pancakes? No, he admitted, but I can learn. 20 minutes later, the kitchen was a disaster. Flour covered the countertops, batter splattered the stove, and J1 had somehow managed to burn 3 pancakes in a row. But Mia was laughing, and so was Kai. Even Elijah cracked a small smile. Naomi leaned against the counter, arms crossed, a reluctant smile tugging at her lips. You're terrible at this. I know, J1 said, flipping another pancake, this one only slightly charred. But I'm trying. Trying isn't the same as succeeding. It's a start. She didn't argue. By the time breakfast was over, thanks to Naomi quietly taking over pancake duty, J1's phone had lit up with over 50 missed calls. His father, his associates, Saoyin, He ignored them all. Instead, he sat on the floor with Kai and Elijah, building a tower out of blocks while Mia gave Naomi a tour of the penthouse, pointing at random furniture and naming colors. It was ordinary, simple, and J1 couldn't remember the last time he'd felt this present, but the peace didn't. Lastly, at noon, there was a knock at the door. Naomi tensed immediately. "Are you expecting someone?" "No." J1 opened the door to find his head of security standing there, his expression grim. "Sir, there's been a situation." "What kind of situation?" The security guard hesitated. "Your father has frozen your assets. All of them. Bank accounts, credit cards, property access, everything." Jaewon's blood ran cold. Naomi appeared behind him. "What does that mean?" "It means," Jaewon said slowly, "he's cutting me off." "Can he do that?" "Technically, yes. Everything I have is tied to the family business. If he removes me from the board, I lose access." Naomi's face went pale. "So you're broke for now." She laughed a sharp, disbelieving sound. Of course, this is what happens." Jaewon turned to her. "It doesn't change anything. Doesn't change anything," she repeated, her voice rising. "Jaewon, I can barely afford my rent. I can't support you and 3 kids. I'll figure it out." "How?" "I don't know," he snapped, frustration bleeding into his voice. "But I'm not going back to him. I'm not." Naomi stared at him, her chest heaving. "This is exactly what I was afraid of. You're so used to having everything handed to you that you don't even understand what it means to lose it. That's not fair, isn't it?" she challenged. "You think you can just walk away from your entire life and everything will be fine. It doesn't work like that, Jaewon. Reality doesn't care about good intentions." The words hit like a slap. Jaewon's jaw tightened. "So what are you saying? That I should go back, marry Seo-yin, pretend my children don't exist?" "I'm saying," Naomi said, her voice breaking, "that maybe you need to think about what's actually best for them, not what makes you feel better." The silence that followed was suffocating. Kai appeared in the hallway, his small face worried. "Are you guys fighting?" Naomi immediately softened. "No, baby, we're just talking." "It sounds like fighting." She knelt down, pulling him into a hug. "Sometimes grown-ups have to have hard conversations, but it's okay." Kai looked over her shoulder at Jaewon. "Are you leaving?" The question gutted him. "No," Jaewon said firmly. "I'm not leaving." Naomi closed her eyes, and Jaewon saw the battle warring inside her: fear, hope, exhaustion, all tangled together. That evening, after the children were asleep, Jaewon sat alone on the balcony, staring out at the city. Naomi joined him, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Finally, Naomi broke the silence. "I didn't mean what I said earlier about you not understand. You were right, though," Jaewon said quietly. "I've never had to struggle. Not really. Everything I have had was because of my family name. So what are you going to do?" He looked at her, and there was something new in his eyes. Determination. "I'm going to build something on my own. Without my father's money. Without his name." "That's easier said than done." "I know." He paused. "But I have skills. Connections. I know how business works. I just need a chance to prove I can stand on my own." Naomi studied him. "And if you fail?" "Then I fail," he said simply. "But at least I'll fail as a father, as someone trying to do the right thing." She was quiet for a moment. Then, softly, "Kai asked me tonight if you were going to be his dad forever." Jaewon's breath caught. "What did you tell him?" "I told him I didn't know." She looked at him, her eyes glistening. "But I want to know, Jaewon. I want to believe you're going to stay. That you're not going to wake up one day and realize this is too hard." He reached out, hesitating, then gently took her hand. She didn't pull away. "I'm not going anywhere," he said. "I promise." "Promises are easy to make," Naomi whispered. "It's keeping them that's hard." "Then watch me keep it," Jaewon said, "every single day for the rest of my life." Naomi's eyes filled with tears. But this time, they weren't tears of anger. They were tears of something that felt dangerously close to hope. And as they sat there, hands intertwined, looking out at the city that had both broken and remade them, J1 felt something he hadn't felt in 3 years. Belonging, not to an empire, not to a legacy, but to a family, his family, and he would fight to keep it, no matter what it cost. 6 months later, the small office in Brooklyn smelled like fresh paint and coffee. It wasn't much, just 3 rooms on the second floor of an old building. Windows overlooking a busy street corner, where a bodega sold flowers and the subway rumbled beneath the pavement every 15 minutes. The furniture was secondhand. The coffee maker was ancient. The view was of brick walls and fire escapes. But it was his, J1 Communications and Consulting. No family name, no underground empire, no blood money, just him. The sign on the door was simple black letters on frosted glass. Every morning when he unlocked that door, he felt something he'd never felt in his father's world. Pride. Not the hollow pride of inherited power, but the deep, bone-tired satisfaction of building something with his own hands. He'd started with nothing. Less than nothing. Actually frozen bank accounts. A reputation tainted by association, and 3 children who needed stability he didn't know how to provide. The first week had been terrifying. He'd reached out to old business contacts, people who owed him favors, relationships he'd built on his own merit rather than his father's influence. Some ignored him. Some hung up the moment they heard his voice. But a few, a precious few, listened. "You're really doing this?" Michael Chin had asked over coffee in a dingy cafe in Queens. Michael ran an import-export company, legitimate, and had always respected J1's negotiation skills. "I don't have a choice," J1 had admitted. "But more than that, I don't want a choice. I want to do this right." Michael had studied him for a long moment. Then he'd slid a business card across the table. "I've got a contract dispute with a supplier in Seoul. Complex, messy. If you can help me navigate it, I'll pay your consulting fee, and I'll refer you to others." It was a lifeline. J1 had worked the case for 3 weeks straight, 18-hour days, living off mint and determination. He'd slept on Naomi's couch in her tiny Brooklyn apartment because he couldn't afford his own place yet. Kai, Elijah, and Mia had watched him with wide, uncertain eyes every morning when he'd fold up his blanket and make coffee in their cramped kitchen, waiting to see if he'd quit, waiting to see if he'd disappear, waiting to see if the fancy promises would crumble under the weight of real struggle. He didn't quit. He solved Michael's problem, saved him $2 million and a crucial partnership. Michael paid him and referred 3 other clients. By month 2, J1 had steady work. By month 4, he had consistent income. By month 6, he was profitable, not empire-level wealth, but enough to move out of Naomi's living room and into his own small apartment 2 blocks away. Enough to buy Mia the light-up sneakers she'd been eyeing at the store. Enough to take Kai and Elijah to their first baseball game. Enough to look Naomi in the eye and say, "I can support us now, really support us now." Standing in his small office on a Tuesday afternoon, J1 looked at the photo on his desk. Naomi and the kids at the park, all 4 of them laughing. Mia was on his shoulders, her tiny hands buried in his hair. Kai and Elijah were racing ahead toward the playground. Naomi smiling at the camera with a warmth that still took his breath away. His phone buzzed. "Naomi, don't forget, Mia's recital is at 6. We're saving you a seat. She's been practicing her routine all week. She's so excited you're coming." He smiled, his chest warm. "J1, I'll be there. Promise, wouldn't miss it for anything." "Naomi, I know. I'm starting to believe that now." The words hit him hard in a good way. Starting to believe. It had taken 6 months of showing up every single day, of keeping every promise, of choosing them over and over again, for her to start trusting that he meant it. And he'd keep earning the trust for the rest of his life if that's what it took. These days, he kept his promises, every single one. The recital was held in a small community center in Bed-Stuy, packed wall to wall with parents holding cameras and grandparents clutching bouquets of cheap flowers wrapped in cellophane. The stage was barely 6 feet wide, decorated with construction paper stars and a hand-painted rainbow backdrop. The sound system crackled. The lighting was uneven. It was perfect. J1 slipped into the back row just as the lights dimmed, scanning the crowd until he spotted Naomi. She was in the third row, Kai on one side fidgeting with his program, Elijah on the other reading a book he'd smuggled in. When she saw him, her face lit up that smile that still made his heart skip. She waved him over, and he made his way through the crowd, murmuring apologies as he squeezed past other parents until he reached the seat she'd saved. "You made it," she whispered, her hand immediately finding his. "I said I would." She squeezed his fingers. "I know. I'm just still getting used to it, to you being here." He lifted her hand and kissed her knuckles gently. "Get used to it. I'm not going anywhere." Kai leaned over. "Mia's been driving us crazy all week. She keeps making us watch her practice." "That's what big brothers are for," J1 said with a grin. "That's what you say," Kai muttered, but he was smiling. Elijah looked up from his book. "She's really good, though. You'll see." The lights dimmed further, and the recital began. There were 12 little girls in total, ages 3 to 5, all in matching pink tutus and ballet slippers. They lined up on stage with varying degrees of success. One was waving at her parents. Another was picking her nose. A third looked terrified. And then there was Mia. She stood in the center, her face serious with concentration, her tiny hands positioned exactly as her teacher had shown her. She scanned the audience, and when she spotted them, her whole face transformed, pure, radiant joy. She waved enthusiastically, nearly losing her balance, and Jaewon's chest tightened so hard he could barely breathe. "That's my daughter." The thought still felt surreal, precious, terrifying. The music started, a tinny recording of Tchaikovsky, and the girls began to dance. It was chaos. Beautiful, clumsy, absolutely perfect chaos. Mia danced with complete commitment, her movements offbeat and enthusiastic, her tongue poking out slightly as she concentrated. She stumbled once, caught herself, and kept going without missing a beat. Naomi's hand tightened on Jaewon's, and when he glanced at her, he saw a tear streaming down her face. "You okay?" he whispered. She nodded, smiling through the tears. I never thought she'd have this." A father in the audience, someone cheering for her. Jaewon pulled her closer, his own eyes burning. "She'll always have me. I promise." "I know," Naomi whispered. "I'm finally starting to know." When the dance ended, the audience erupted in applause. The little girls took their bows, most of them waving instead of actually bowing, and Mia immediately broke formation and ran off stage. She didn't go to her teacher. She ran straight down the center aisle, her tutu bouncing, her ballet slippers slapping against the floor, straight to Jaewon. He caught her as she launched herself into his arms, and she wrapped her small arms around his neck so tightly he thought his heart might burst. "Did you see me, Daddy?" she asked breathlessly. "Did you see my spin? I did it just like Miss Rachel showed us." The word daddy still hit him like lightning every single time. She'd started calling him that about a month ago, tentatively at first, testing the word like she wasn't sure it was allowed. Now it came naturally, like he'd always been there. And every time she said it, it destroyed him in the best possible way. "I saw you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You were incredible. The best dancer up there." Really?" She giggled and hugged him tighter. "I love you, Daddy." His breath caught. "I love you too, sweetheart. So much." Kai tugged on his sleeve. "Can we get ice cream now? You promised if we sat through the whole recital we could get ice cream." Jaewon looked at Naomi, who was watching the whole scene with soft, glistening eyes. "Ice cream sounds perfect," she said, her voice barely steady. They ended up at their usual spot, a small ice cream shop near the waterfront with wobbly tables and the best chocolate chip cookie dough in Brooklyn. The kids were covered in chocolate and sprinkles within minutes, arguing good-naturedly about who could eat their cone the fastest without getting a brain freeze. Naomi and Jaewon sat on a bench nearby, watching them. "They're happy," Naomi said softly, her head resting on his shoulder. "Yeah," Jaewon agreed, his arm around her. "They really are. You did that. You showed up. You stayed. You became the father they needed. We did that." He corrected gently. "You raised them for 3 years alone. You gave them everything when I gave them nothing. You taught them what love looks like. I'm just trying to catch up. Naomi lifted her head to look at him. You're doing more than catching up, J1. You're building something beautiful, something real. He cupped her face, his thumb brushing her cheekbone. I love you, you know. I've loved you since the day I met you. I just forgot how to show it, but I remembered now. She searched his eyes, and he could see her fighting her own emotions. I love you too, she whispered. I never stopped, even when I hated you. Even when I was terrified and alone and convinced you'd never come back, I never stopped loving you. I'm so sorry. I made you doubt that. I know you are. She touched his face. And I forgive you. Not because you don't deserve to carry the guilt, but because I don't want to carry it anymore either. I want to move forward with you. J1 kissed her, then soft, tender, full of 3 years of grief and hope and second chances. When they pulled apart, Kai was standing directly in front of them, hands on his hips. His face far too serious for a 7-year-old. Are you guys gonna get married? He asked bluntly. Naomi laughed, her cheeks flushing. Kai, because if you are, Kai continued, undeterred. Elijah and I want to be in the wedding. We talked about it. And Mia says she wants to throw flowers and wear a fancy dress. Elijah appeared at Kai's side, nodding solemnly. It's only fair, since you're our dad now. Mia ran over, ice cream forgotten. I want to throw flowers. Like in the movies. J1 looked at Naomi, his heart pounding. What do you think? She bit her lip, her eyes shining with unshed tears and laughter. I think. Maybe we should talk about it. Is that a maybe yes? It's a maybe, ask me properly and find out. He grinned, pulling her closer. Noted. Kai groaned. That means they're gonna be weird and romantic about it, doesn't it? Definitely. Elijah agreed. Mia just clapped her hands. I want a purple dress. And as J1 watched his children debate wedding details, they'd clearly been planning for weeks. His arm around the woman he'd loved and lost and found again. He felt something settle deep in his chest. This was home, not a penthouse overlooking Manhattan, not an empire built on fear and blood. This messy, loud, imperfect family was home, and he was never letting it go. 3 months later, J1 took Naomi back to the waterfront, the same spot, where they had ice cream with the kids after Mia's recital, the same bench, the same view of the Brooklyn Bridge lit up against the twilight sky. Except this time, it was just the two of them. The kids were with Naomi's sister for the evening, though he was pretty sure they knew exactly what was happening. Kai had accidentally left a drawing on the kitchen table that morning, stick figures in wedding clothes, complete with Mia throwing flowers and a banner that read "Marry her already." Subtle, kid, real subtle. Naomi looked beautiful in the golden light of the setting sun, her hair loose around her shoulders, a soft yellow dress that moved in the evening breeze. She smiled at him, curious and trusting in a way that still made his breath catch. Why did you bring me here? She asked, though there was something in her eyes that suggested she already knew. J1 took both of her hands in his heart hammering, because this is where I realized I had everything I needed. J1. Let me finish, he said gently, his voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm him. 3 years ago, I lost you because I was too afraid to fight for what mattered. I let fear and obligation control me. I became someone I hated, someone who chose power over love, legacy over life. He paused, his thumbs brushing over her knuckles. But you gave me a second chance. You let me into your life, into their lives, when you had every reason to slam the door in my face. You could have kept them from me. You could have raised them to hate me. But you didn't. You taught them that people can change, that love is stronger than anger. Naomi's eyes filled with tears. You taught me what it means to show up. J1 continued. To fight, to love without conditions, to build something that actually matters. Every morning when I wake up and see them see you, I know I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. He released one of her hands and reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. Naomi's free hand flew to her mouth. J1 dropped to one knee on the weathered boardwalk, and he saw her tremble. I know I don't deserve you, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I know I've made mistakes that can't be erased, but I'm asking anyway, because I love you. Because I want to spend the rest of my life proving that I'll never walk away again. Because I want to build a life with your real life. Not empires or legacies or anything built on fear. Just us and them and whatever comes next. He opened the box, revealing a simple, elegant ring, nothing ostentatious. Nothing meant to show off wealth he no longer had. Just a beautiful band with a single diamond. Chosen because it reminded him of her. Strong, brilliant, precious. Naomi, will you marry me? For a moment, she couldn't speak. Tears streamed down her face, but she was smiling, radiant, breathtaking, absolutely beautiful. Yes, she finally whispered, her voice breaking. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Jaewon's hand shook slightly as he slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. He stood and pulled her into his arms, lifting her off the ground as she laughed and cried at the same time. Her arms wrapped around his neck, her face buried in his shoulder. When he set her down, she cupped his face with both hands. I'm so proud of you, she said fiercely, of who you become, of what you've built. I'm only who I am because of you, he said. No, she corrected, her voice firm, but gentle. You chose this, you chose us, you chose to change. That was all you. Jaewon, don't diminish that. He kissed her, then deep, tender, full of promises and hope and a future that finally felt real. When they pulled apart, both breathless, Naomi laughed. The kids are going to lose their minds. Kai's probably already planning the entire wedding. Elijah's probably calculating the budget, and Mia's definitely already picked out her dress. They stood there, wrapped in each other, as the sun set over Brooklyn and the city lights began to twinkle to life around them. I can't wait to marry you, Jaewon whispered. I can't wait to be your wife. Naomi whispered back, and for the first time in 3 years, the future felt bright. The wedding was small and perfect. They held it in the same community center where Mia had performed her recital of choice. That made Mia squeal with delight and declare it the best place in the whole world. Just close friends, Naomi's family, and a handful of Jaewon's former business contacts who'd become genuine friends. Over the past months, Michael Chin was there, beaming with pride. A few other clients who'd taken chances on him. No underground empire, no power plays, no family politics, just love. The decorations were simple, white flowers, string lights, chairs borrowed from the center storage room. Naomi's sister had helped with everything, and the kids had made construction paper decorations that hung proudly alongside the professional flowers. Kai, Elijah, and Mia stood at the altar with them. The boys in matching navy suits that they'd picked out themselves. Mia in a lavender dress with flowers in her hair. She negotiated down from purple, but only barely. Naomi walked down the aisle to acoustic guitar music, wearing a simple white dress that took Jaewon's breath away. No veil, no train, no elaborate setup, just her, smiling at him like he was her whole world. When she reached the altar, Mia tugged on her dress. Mama, you look like a princess. Naomi laughed, tears already spilling over. Thank you, baby. The ceremony was short and sweet. They'd written their own vows. Jaewon went first, his voice steady despite the emotion threatening to choke him. Naomi, 3 years ago I let you walk out of my life because I was afraid of choosing wrong, afraid of disappointing my family, afraid of being weak. But losing you taught me something. Choosing love is never weakness. It's the bravest thing a person can do. He glanced at the children, then back at her. You gave me 3 incredible reasons to fight, 3 perfect reasons to become better. And every day since you came back into my life, you've shown me what real strength looks like. It's not power. It's not control. It's showing up. It's forgiving. It's building something beautiful out of broken pieces. His voice cracked. I promise to choose you every day for the rest of my life. I promise to be the partner you deserve, the father our children deserve. I promise to fight for this family with everything I have. I love you. I've always loved you, and I always will. Naomi was openly crying now, and half the room was too. She took a shaky breath and began her vows. Jaewon, when you walked out of my life 3 years ago, I thought I lost everything, but I was wrong. I'd gained something precious, 3 beautiful children who taught me that love doesn't need permission, that family isn't about perfection. It's about showing up, even when it's hard. She smiled through her tears. When you came back, I was terrified. Terrified you'd leave again. Terrified I was making a mistake. But you didn't leave. You stayed through the hard days, through my anger, through my fear. You stayed, and slowly, you showed me that people really can change. That second chances are real. That the love we had never really died. It was just waiting for us to be brave enough to fight for it. She reached for his hands. I promise to trust you, to build a life with you, to remind you every day that you are enough, not because of what you have, but because of who you are. I love you. I choose you. Today and every day. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. The efficient and kind older woman from the community center smiled warmly. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss. She didn't even finish the sentence before J1 pulled Naomi into his arms and kissed her. The room erupted in cheers and applause. Kai and Elijah high-fived each other, and Mia threw her flower petals straight up in the air, laughing as they rained down around them. When J1 and Naomi finally pulled apart, both breathless and grinning, Mia tugged on J1's sleeve. Are we a real family now? She asked seriously. J1 knelt down so he was eye level with all 3 children. We've always been a real family. Sweetheart, this just makes it official. Good, Kai said firmly. Because I was getting tired of people asking why our last names were different. Everyone laughed, and as they walked back down the aisle together, J1, Naomi, and their 3 children, J1 felt a peace so profound it nearly brought him to his knees. This was it. This was everything. 5 years later, the house in the suburbs was loud and chaotic and absolutely perfect. It wasn't huge, a modest 4-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood in New Jersey, with a backyard and a tire swing and a vegetable garden that Naomi tended with the kids every weekend. But it was theirs, paid for with money J1 had earned legitimately. 3 years of hard work and smart decisions and building a reputation that had nothing to do with his family name. Kai was 12 now, all knees and elbows and passion for soccer. His room was covered in posters of professional players, and he spent every afternoon at practice, dreaming of going pro someday. Elijah was quieter, still the reader, but he discovered a love for coding and spent hours building small programs and video games. He'd recently won a regional technology competition, and J1 had framed the certificate and hung it in the office. Mia was 8, a whirlwind of energy and questions and creativity. She'd moved on from ballet to about 6 different hobbies, currently obsessed with painting and convincing everyone that they needed a dog. And now there was baby Grace, 18 months old, with Naomi's warm brown eyes and J1's stubborn chin and an impressive set of lungs that she used liberally. J1 stood in the kitchen on a Sunday morning, Grace balanced on his hip, attempting to make pancakes while simultaneously preventing her from grabbing the spatula. No, Gracie, he said gently, redirecting her chubby hand for the 3rd time. Hot. She babbled something that sounded like disagreement and reached for it again. From the dining room, he could hear Naomi wrangling the older kids. Kai, shoes, now. Elijah, please put the book down. We need to leave in 10 minutes. Mia, we talked about this. You cannot bring 50.
You didn't come this far just for a preview. There's something about getting lost in a story, especially when it keeps playing while life goes on. Cooking, cleaning, driving, trying to relax after a long day. Now imagine having 30 complete stories ready for you. Over 30 hours of immersive audio. No interruptions. No distractions. Just the story unfolding. If this made you feel something, don't stop here. Scan the QR code on your screen or tap the link in the pinned comment. The full story is waiting.
Teen stuffed animals to brunch. But they'll be sad if I leave them, Mia protested. Pick 3, Naomi said firmly. Final offer. J1 smiled, flipping a perfect pancake. 5 years ago, he couldn't have imagined this life. Couldn't have imagined the joy and the chaos, the peace and the noise, the absolute certainty that this was what success actually looked like. Not power, not wealth, not control, just family. Naomi appeared in the kitchen doorway, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, wearing jeans and one of his old t-shirts. She looked tired. Grace had been up half the night teething, but beautiful, always beautiful. She crossed to him and kissed his cheek, then Grace's forehead. How's breakfast coming? Almost done. How's the shoe situation? Ongoing negotiation. She smiled. Kai wants to know if you can come to his game next Saturday. Wouldn't miss it. That's what I told him. She leaned against the counter, watching him. You're really good at this, you know, at pancakes, at all of it. Her eyes were soft, full of love, at being a dad, a husband, at building this life. J1 set down the spatula and pulled her close with his free arm. Grace squished between them and giggling. I had a good teacher. I didn't teach you this. You chose it every day, he agreed. Best choice I ever made. She kissed him properly this time, and Grace squealed with delight, patting both their faces with sticky hands. From the dining room, they're kissing again. Gross. Kai, let them be romantic, Elijah said sagely. Mom says it's healthy for married people to show affection. Still gross. Naomi pulled back, laughing. I should probably go referee before Mia sneaks the entire stuffed animal collection into her backpack. Probably. But she lingered for a moment, her hand on his chest, right over his heart. I love you. I love you too. Even when I'm covered in baby drool and haven't slept in 3 days. Especially then. She grinned and kissed him once more before heading back to the chaos. J1 looked down at Grace, who was watching him with wide, curious eyes. What do you think, Gracie girl? Should we go rescue Mama from your siblings? Grace babbled enthusiastically and grabbed his nose. I'll take that as a yes. Later that afternoon, after brunch with Naomi's family and a stop at the park where Kai had taught Grace how to go down the slide with extensive supervision, they all piled back into the minivan, a far cry from the luxury cars of J1's old life, but infinitely more precious. As J1 drove home, Naomi's hand in his, the kids arguing cheerfully in the back about what movie to watch that night, he caught sight of his reflection in the rearview mirror. He looked different than he had 5 years ago. Older, yes. More tired, definitely. But also, lighter. The weight he'd carried for so long, the guilt, the anger, the desperate need to prove himself had finally lifted. He'd lost an empire, but he'd gained a kingdom, one built on love, forgiveness, and the daily choice to show up, to be present, to fight for what mattered. His phone buzzed with a work email, a new client interested in his consulting services. Business was good, growing, even. He built something real, something legitimate, something he was genuinely proud of. But more than that, he'd built a family, a real family. Daddy? Mia's voice piped up from the back seat. Can we get a dog yet? Ask your mother, he said with a grin, catching Naomi's eye. She shook her head, smiling. You are not putting this on me again. I have no idea what you mean. Liar. Love you too. And as they pulled into their driveway, the kids tumbling out of the car with their usual chaos. Grace babbling happily. Naomi laughing at something Elijah said. J1 realized he didn't miss his old life at all. Not the power, not the money, not the empire his father had built on blood and fear. Because this loud, messy, imperfect, beautiful life was worth more than all of the combined. He'd found his empire, and it was built on love. The end.